Good morning, and welcome to the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy's live weekly broadcast. I'm Roberta Oster, the Communications Director. Our program brings you insight and perspective and resources from policy and faith leaders, legislators, and community members. We also share opportunities for you to get involved in our work, advancing social justice and helping our neighbors. During these difficult times dealing with COVID-19 and racial justice, our broadcast focuses on economic, racial, social, and environmental justice issues here in Virginia. Today is a very special broadcast. In fact, it's a first. This is a production for the United Methodist Women of Virginia. And our board member, Dr. Karen McElfish, will serve as our moderator. She will interview Kim Bobo, Virginia Interfaith Center's Executive Director, about policy issues that both United Methodist Women and the Interfaith Center are advocating. We are thrilled that the United Methodist Women are launching their own program to reach out to their members and to people across Virginia. So first, a special thanks and congratulations to United Methodist Women of Virginia. And now, a little background on our guests. Kim Bobo is Executive Director of the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy. A nationally known advocate for social justice, Kim leads the Interfaith Center's advocacy, outreach, and development work. She's also the author of a seminal book on faith-based organizing and another book called Wage Theft, a handbook for workers and advocates, and why millions of working Americans are not getting paid and what we can do about it. Welcome, Kim. And our moderator today, Dr. Karen McElfish, is a member of the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy's board. She is a retired pediatrician, now pursuing a career in art. Karen has been a longtime member of United Methodist Women and has served as District Social Action Coordinator, District President, and was recently Conference Vice President. She now serves as Conference Mission Coordinator for Social Action. Welcome, Karen, and thank you for hosting.
All right.
Kim, great to spend some time with you today to be able to talk about General Assembly and all the things that have been going on. I really appreciate your taking the time to be in conversation today. And thanks for all the things that you do.
Well, thank you, Karen. It's great to be here. And before we go any further, my bio did not say that I'm a member of United Methodist Women. So I just want you to know.
That's great. Thanks, Kim, for letting us know that. 2020 has obviously been a rather interesting year in so many ways. I wanted to take the time first to ask, what were some of the highlights of General Assembly 2020 and the special session as you see them? And what were some of the lowlights of the sessions?
So there were a lot of things that got passed in the regular session. So this is the session that runs from mid-January to mid-March. So first, we had been working for like 3 years on a package of wage theft bills. So these are bills to make sure that workers, especially low-wage workers, can get paid for all the work that they've done, all that they are legally owed. And so we actually got 6 different bills passed that we were really excited about. And again, these were ones that we wrote, we made them happen. We moved that. We also were able to move 2 different bills on environmental justice, trying to make the policies of Virginia on environment focused on the disparate impact that sometimes policies have, and making sure that we were looking, especially on our fossil fuel infrastructure. Are we always going to put pipelines in low-income communities or waste dumps in poor Black communities? Like, how do we assess sort of the environmental policies with sort of the least of these in consideration. So we got 2 policies on that, which are really great. Then we worked in a number of coalition efforts that were successful, but where we, our job was really to engage the faith community on this. And so again, we played significant roles in several different policies, including raising the minimum wage, which, people haven't had a raise in the minimum wage in over 11 years. So that was long overdue. Longest period in history, by the way, that people haven't had an increase in the minimum wage since the minimum wage has gotten started. Secondly, we worked on predatory lending. We worked with the Virginia Poverty Law Center, and the 2 organizations really partnered to deal with comprehensive predatory lending reform. So all these Title Maxes and whatever that, when people get behind on their rent or they need money, they take out these loans and they're at exorbitant interest rates, and then they never get out of debt. And so we finally got some rules in place that will limit how much money people can borrow based on what they can afford to pay back. It limits the interest rates. Anyway, it does a lot of good things that will really improve it here in Virginia. Thirdly, we supported immigrant rights organizations on their 2 priorities, and they were getting a driver's privilege card so that people can drive legally in the state. It's kind of like a driver's license, but called a driver's privilege card, and in-state tuition for young people, these DACA students and others who've gone through our public schools, but now want to go to college and need to be able to get in-state tuition to be able to do that. So we got those through. And then we were also working on some other environmental issues, particularly around Virginia being involved in RGGI and trying to get some of that money targeted to the energy burden for folks. So those were the successful things. Probably the big sort of loss for us was one that United Methodist Women worked a lot with us on. And, but, often what happens in policies is first time things are introduced, they're just, it takes them a while to get through. So for example, on our paid sick or on our wage theft stuff, it took us 3 years to get those through. So, it doesn't happen overnight. So we had a paid sick day bill to require all employers in Virginia to provide 5 paid sick days for workers. It eventually ended up a bill that exempted small businesses with under 15 employees. Got through the House, made it through the Senate one time, got to conference committee, got back through the House, and then got defeated on the floor of the Senate the last day of the General Assembly. We were terribly disappointed. But, again, some of this stuff takes a while to get through. So you'll hear about that in a minute because we're coming back to that. So that was the main session. Then during the summer, the governor proposed that Virginia create a temporary standard, an emergency temporary standard for an OSHA standard for workplaces around COVID-19. And so then we worked all summer trying to get this emergency temporary standard, which was passed by the Virginia Safety and Health Codes Board, making Virginia the Commonwealth, the state, has the strongest OSHA standard on COVID-19 of any state in the nation. So we're so proud of that. And again, I think that's one of the ways that we can flatten the curve against COVID-19 in Virginia. Obviously, paid sick days would have helped flatten that curve as well, but we didn't get that one. Then during the special session, which was called particularly this year to deal with the budget issues and with some of the policing criminal justice reform issues, we supported a number of bills in terms of policing reform that actually got passed. We weren't the lead on most of those, but we did support quite a few of them. And we tried again to run a sort of paid quarantine bill, not exactly paid sick days, but paid quarantine. Again, got it through the House, but the Senate was like, we're not having it. We don't even want to discuss it. So, okay, bring it back in the regular session. All right, so we'll do that. So the special session was, it was definitely special. Like we'd never experienced something like that. It went on for several months. It was all virtual. It was difficult. It was very difficult, but I think it gave us a heads up about what the regular session is likely to look like
Yes.
right now during COVID-19.
Sure. Yeah, it was an interesting experience to get to actually testify before the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee via Zoom as one of the ways that we in UMW were trying to stay active and stay involved in the coalition of Virginians for Paid Sick Days. So looking forward to General Assembly 2021, as you mentioned, quite likely that most everything is going to be virtual. What do you anticipate seeing in this session as being some of the key things? And let me remind you that United Methodist Women has a number of social action priority areas, and they have been economic inequality, racial justice, and climate justice. And going forward, our priorities for the next quadrennium are going to be two specific campaigns. One is Just Energy for All, so looking at environmental justice, climate justice issues. And the other is Ending the School to Prison Pipeline, so looking at mass incarceration, specifically in communities of color. That said, so much of both of those have economic injustice implications. And so we will continue to be active in economic inequality as well. So with that in mind, what do you see kind of as areas we ought to be watching in General Assembly 2021?
Well, you can imagine that we're going to try again on paid sick days.
Yep, good.
So, and the challenge is going to be, I think, there are certainly some senators that are questioning, well, shouldn't we just wait another couple years right now? And I think part of our argument is that, this is really one of the things that, again, could help address the problem with COVID-19. So, we are going to have to meet with lots of legislators this fall to try and make that a priority. So especially senators. So we ask all United Methodist women, this issue because you've been working with us for a year on it, contact your senator and say, please get us a paid sick day bill during this upcoming General Assembly. It's only that kind of simple message that I think is going to get through to them. So we're going to try again on that. We tried last year and the year before that to remove the farm worker exemption on minimum wage. So currently in Virginia, if you're a farm worker, you're not covered by minimum wage. And again, I think we all know how hard farm workers work. And it's just hard to, I think there's no justification that they don't deserve at least the minimum wage. And so we want to get rid of that exemption on the minimum wage. So we'll work on that.
Good, that makes sense.
Yeah. On the criminal justice area, I think what's going to be our top priority this year is abolishing the death penalty. It's really a legacy of our lynching history. Right? That's where the death penalty comes from, that it's okay just to kill somebody. And, Virginia had a lot of lynchings, and we're one of the southern states that has this continued history with the death penalty. And so we think we've got a good shot to remove it this year. And it actually not only affects those people on death row, but also it affects the kind of plea bargaining that people do. So they often will say, okay, we'll take life imprisonment so you don't get the death penalty. So it ends up affecting other kinds of sentencing issues that put people in jail for very long periods of time. So we think we've got a really good shot at it. We would be the first state in the South to get rid of it. So it would likely have implications for other states in the South. So we're hoping United Methodist will help us with that one. And again, I think we're going to have very good bipartisan support on this one. because Senator Stanley, Republican from Southwest, is a supporter of this. I mean, what he says is, I don't think I can play God. And it's really only God who can decide who lives and who dies. And I shouldn't be asked to do this. So, and again, it's out of his faith. And so we think we can get a good support for that. We will also probably look at some pretrial detention, cash bail and other kinds of things that end up locking poor people, especially in jail unnecessarily. So again, I think we share the United Methodist values around stopping the prison, school to prison pipeline, reducing mass incarceration, and really trying to reduce the criminalization of poverty, right? People end up in jail essentially just because they're poor. So again, those are things in that space that we're going to be working on. We also, environmental justice and climate concerns are a priority for us as well. And so we are going to be looking at several things in the environmental justice space, but a lot of it around energy burden. How do we reduce the amount that people have to pay to Dominion, especially if they're poor? How do we make sure that utilities aren't cut off, especially water right now? And again, looking at sort of the infrastructure decisions that are made. I think long-term, we're also interested in trying to figure out if there's some things we could do around public transportation. Again, for us, always on the environmental issues, it's how do they intersect with poor people and low-income communities. And so again, transportation and reducing carbon usage and cars around the state, it would be a good thing for the environment. But it's really important to have public transportation for low-income communities. It's so hard to get to work or do anything if you don't have that. So I think those are, we'll do some stuff on child health. If there are some opportunities to expand food stamps or increase the amount on TANF, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, we will do that. Any sort of the human needs stuff. And we likely will actually, assuming COVID is going to still be with us, we may need to push for more money to stop evictions in Virginia. There's been a huge problem with evictions for low-income families since we since the money from the federal government has stopped for folks who are unemployed. Now, again, we won't need as much if the federal government decides to pass another stimulus bill that gets more money into people's hands. So again, that one really depends on what the federal government does. So it's a pretty big agenda. It's a short session, which means, it's really only 6 weeks long, which means, especially in this virtual moment, that a lot of our work is going to have to be done ahead of time. So we need to be meeting now with legislators. So anyway, let me stop. But Karen, I do want us to talk about what United Methodist Women can do in the next couple months here before the session starts.
Great, Kim. I think that's really important to be focusing on. What are some of the things that we can do? Some of the things that we have done in the past was meet with our delegates and our senators to both in advance as well as during the session. A few of us actually even did some short videos on why paid sick days were important to us. But what are some of the other ways going forward that United Methodist Women can be active and involved?
Well, first thing is everybody should sign up for their delegate and senator's Facebook page and get on their email list so you get the information from your legislator. And then they will have some sort of virtual town hall. Show up at the town hall and ask a question. What are you going to do on paid sick days? What are you going to do on abolishing the death penalty? Just asking the question in these public forums makes them realize they got to at least think about it ahead of time. So that's number one. That's a very easy one. Secondly, I would urge everyone to send an email to especially your senator, asking him or her to make getting paid sick days a priority. And will you work with us to abolish the death penalty? right? These are things all, just a simple email to particularly your senator, but your House delegate as well is a good thing. Thirdly, we are organizing a number of meetings with legislators right now, but not all of them. And so if any of your chapters, any of your local congregation committees, anybody wants to say, hey, I'll help get a meeting, we would be happy to offer the Zoom, set up the Zoom. We'd be happy to brief you on the issues so that you feel equipped to talk about it, and give you fact sheets and background on all the issues so you can talk about them. Anyway, we would love to support you in doing that kind of meeting. Then you should also sign up for our joint Days for All People in January. That would be usually we have a lobby day. VICPP has a lobby day in January, and then a week later, the United Methodists have a lobby day, but we work together on it the whole time anyway. And this year, because it's going to be virtual, we decided let's just figure out how to do this together.
And we're really excited about that opportunity.
Yeah, it should be really fun. Yeah. And so it's going to be January 18th, the week of January 18th. We're going to have little things all the way through because nobody can stand being on Zoom all day. Like that's too much, right? I can't anyway.
No.
So we're going to, in the morning, we'll have the various meetings scheduled. So you'll probably have 2 meetings over the course of the week with you, one with your senator and one with your delegate. Then Monday is Martin Luther King Day, and that's actually a day of service all over the state. And so we're going to be partnering in our communities, and people can participate, and others might not because they don't feel safe. But anyway, it'll be an opportunity for service. We are hoping to have Bishop Lewis as one of our midday keynote speakers. We've got probably 4 or 5 slots at noon, and we're hoping to have Bishop Sharma Lewis one day. We're hoping to have the governor another day. We're going to have Baldemar Velasquez, who is head of the Farm Labor Organizing Committee in North Carolina, and is he's a MacArthur genius. Like, he's a real leader in the country on farm worker issues. Going to be one day. So that'll be that. And then the afternoon there'll be workshops Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and people can join them, not join them, again, whatever tolerance you have, but none of the workshops will be more than an hour because no one wants it longer than that. And then probably on Tuesday, sort of late afternoon, 5 p.m.-ish, we're going to do prayer vigils in several different locations around the state. And then people can do them in their own church's parking lot if they want, or they can do them. These are really to remember the people who've been lynched in Virginia. And there's probably roughly 100 people in Virginia who've been lynched. There are, I think, 81 different sites that have been identified. So you can do a prayer vigil at a site. You can do it at one of our collective ones that we're going to plan, or you can do it in your church parking lot. So we'll have a little liturgy that you can use. And obviously, we'd like people to be a part of that action because it will be part of a collective effort to abolish the death penalty in Virginia. So those are all things people can do. But if folks have other ideas, like, we're open to other ways that you might want to be involved in being an advocate.
And one of the ways that has come up on the screen a couple of times is to sign up for the VICPP newsletter, because that gives you an opportunity to get the information from Virginia Interfaith, which keeps us up to date on things. So that's so great. It's really a wonderful opportunity for us as United Methodist Women to work in conjunction with the VICPP on so many different ways, so many different issues. And so we're really looking forward to the opportunity for us to partner a little bit more directly this year, this coming up year, on the Days for All People and the United Methodist Day at General Assembly. So that'll be pretty exciting. So, Kim, in our last few minutes, let's talk for a moment on why people of faith should be involved in politics and political issues? Why is this important for us to be doing? Certainly we hear in both the Old Testament and New Testament calls for justice, calls for mercy, calls for taking care of the poor, the marginalized in so many ways. So let's talk for a moment about why this is important.
Well, it's so important to do this because it's how we're going to achieve some level of justice and equity in the society. It really can't be done just by our social services. And again, I used to be the chair of a soup kitchen, right? I believe in doing charitable works. I support it. We should do it, but it's not enough, right? And the numbers are so small compared to the gains that we can make when you're involved in public policy, or the harm that can be done to poor people if we're not involved in public policy. And I think the classic example that you all worked with us on was in 2018 when we advocated for Medicaid expansion. That policy alone enabled 400,000 Virginians to get health insurance. I mean, we'd be lucky if our congregations could help one person get health insurance for the year, right? But to help 400,000 people in Virginia, it doesn't compare. So, and if we hadn't been advocating, it might not have happened, right? So again, I think, we try to find the places where our voice will really make a difference, particularly on concerns for low-income, marginalized people. It's, the scriptures talk about that Jesus is an advocate for us, with our Heavenly Father, Mother, right? I think it's similar. We need to be an advocate with and for people who often don't have a voice in the General Assembly or don't have as loud of a voice as they need to have. And so it's really an opportunity, I think, for us to, do justice, not talk justice, but do justice and implement it. Now, that doesn't mean it's not occasionally confusing and messy and it's not like the Bible says you should have 5 paid sick days, right? It's not quite that clear. But you try to, for me, it's always this principle of, if I want it for myself, I want to have it for everybody else. Yeah. And, I need paid sick days. I want paid sick days. I work at a job that has paid sick days, but I want that for everybody else as well.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Kim, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk through things that happened General Assembly 2020 and what we can look forward to in 2021, and for giving us ways that we can continue to be involved. So to reach out and contact our legislators, to attend the town halls, to get on their mailing lists, to get on the mailing list for VICPP as well and get the information there, to be brave and be bold and speak out, use our voice, and advocate for those who may not be able to and who are marginalized and need for us to be involved. So,
because God did not give us a spirit of timidity, but a spirit of power, right?
Yes.
So this is an opportunity to use that spirit. And I love United Methodist Women. And I think United Methodist Women, have just been real advocates for justice for over the decades. And so this partnership with you all is just an honor for us. So, and Karen, thank you for all you do for justice for the United Methodist Women and for VICPP.
Well, thank you, Kim. And it's a joy to work with you. I really appreciate the opportunities.